Hey everybody, it's Jeff Epps, your favorite entrepreneur, and in this episode, we are going to be talking about the databot and how it can be used to really make Microsoft Excel a bit more tangible and more real world like for our students. So to begin with, let's take a look at the databot. The databot here is it's a cube, and it has 16 different sensors built into it: an accelerometer, a gyroscope. It can tell you the temperature in a room. It can tell you the light level, the humidity. It can detect sound. It can detect color. It does an amazing amount of things in one little cube. So I wanted to show you real quick what it looks like. This is the databot here. It has the 16 different sensors built into the inside. It has ports for two external temperature probes. But the cool thing is it can also be applied to computer science because it's basically an Arduino, right? An Arduino is a processor. And with that processor, you can attach motors and sensors and all this cool stuff to really bring computer science, data science alive in your classroom. So let's quickly jump into how do we use this in a Microsoft Excel classroom. All right, so let's say our objective is to, let's say to teach students how to create charts and graphs and glean the story from data. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn the databot over. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And you'll notice that when I turn it on, it'll start highlighting or it'll show this green amber or this green light, flashing light. That means that the databot is now in what we call web server mode. Okay. Now I want you to keep in mind that we are not using the Visi software that you can use. The Visi software is used when you're using it with an iPad or an Android device. We're simply connecting to the databot via its HTTP interface. So there's like a tiny little web server built into the databot, and that's how we're going to connect to it. I also want to stress that the databot is not connected to my local area network or to my wireless network. It is not connected to the internet. So I'm simply using what's called a peer-to-peer network connection to draw data from the databot. Okay, so this keeps the network secure. We don't have to worry about viruses or anything like that. So this is perfect in a K-12 environment. All right, so now that I have it in web server mode, I'm going to flip it over. Okay, and we can see that it's ready for business. So now what I'm going to do is connect to the databot the same way I would any other wireless connection. And notice here, I'm connecting directly to the databot, not to the databot via my wireless network, not via the internet. I'm talking directly to the databot. So I'm going to connect to it. And when I connect to it, I can then access it via a specific IP address. And this is what's called a private IP address, so that it's not public to the internet or anything like that. And that address is 8.8.4.4. And when I go to this web address, now I'm talking directly to the databot. And now you can see all of the different sensors that we can turn on. Okay. Now, before we do that, let me switch over here real quick. Notice now I have this little dashboard, right? And in real time, I'm able to detect the CO2 level, the volatile organic compounds in the environment. So this is my air quality, right? And it's telling me that here in my air quality with my air quality gauge, that my air quality is pretty good here in my office. Thank goodness. The humidity is 29. About 29. I've got air pressure, and I've got ambient light. All right. So this is a really cool device. And then over here, I've got these different drone type missions that I can fly. So if I'm using tele drones and I'm coding them to fly around the room, I can attach the databot to it and really collect some cool information. So let's go back to the main screen. And let's say in this case, I'm going to I'm going to grab the accelerometer, which this is great for science as well. I'm going to grab the accelerometer, and I'm going to grab the light level in the room, ambient light. Okay, so now I'm going to use a sample rate of 100 milliseconds, and I'm going to go ahead and click start. Now, once I click start, the databot is now collecting information, right? So I'm going to go ahead and move my databot on the x-axis. Okay, I'm going to move it on the y-axis. Wow, how about that application to math, right? And then I'm going to move it on the z-axis. I'm going to pick it up. So it's recording this information, and during this time, it's also recording the amount of ambient light. So if I cover the sensor, it should not be getting that much light. And if I take my hand off of it, it's going to continue to get more light. I'm going to cover it again, just so I get some good data. And then I'm going to remove it. And now I'm going to click on stop. And once I click on stop, the sensors have stopped collecting information. I'm now going to click on download. And guess what? Look, it downloads it into what's called a CSV, which is a comma separated value. Okay, so now we're getting into that data science component. I'm now going to launch it into Microsoft Excel. And voila, take a look. I have my data. I have the timestamp for the data. I also have the x-axis, the y-axis, the z-axis, and I have my light level in what's measured in luxes, right? So now, as I scroll through this data, boy, this data tells a story, doesn't it? So if I go back up to the top and I say, okay, when I first moved the databot, I moved it to the left. Well, guess what? It depicted that because I went 900s, negative 900s. Well, that's to the left because remember, this is just like a number line. So there's your application to math, and it shows where I moved on the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis, and of course, it tells me the light level. All right. Now, from a data standpoint and a data science standpoint, this could be very overwhelming for students, right? They look at that and they say, I don't know what that means, okay? However, what we can do is now we have the power of charts and graphs. So let's say we go ahead and we measure the temperature and the humidity. I mean the light level and the accelerometer data. And we're going to do the first 20, let's go with the first 20 columns of code. All right, so I have them highlighted, and now I'm simply going to come over here, click on Insert. I'm going to grab me a chart. Okay, there we go. And now I'm beginning to look at my data. I can now see my data as it's happening. So here's what I'm going to do, though. I'm going to, just for the sake of argument, for this particular lesson, I'm going to grab the accelerometer data, so it just shows up a little bit better here. Here we go, Insert, and now I'm going to create my chart, and now I'm going to make my chart larger, and what I see is, wow, I can now see that my z-axis really didn't change much, right? And I can ask that question of my students. You know, what was the change? Was there very much change with the z-axis for this group of data, for this data set? No, there wasn't. But if I look closely down here at the bottom and I start looking at the x, y, and z-axis, okay, now I can begin to see that there is some change, right? So let me move this little picture out of the way. And I can see that my x-axis is blue, my y-axis is orange, and my z-axis is gray. And now I can begin to tell a story with regard to this data, because I can see that these numbers are negative, okay? These are all negative numbers down here. So on the x-axis, if I have a negative number, I'm moving to the left. of my number line. And on my y-axis, if I have a negative number, I'm moving down, right, on my number line. So now where students begin to see how math is relevant to this particular lesson. Now, I can also, let me zoom out a little bit, because now we see the power of graphs. I can then start to look through. Let's take a look here at our light level. So now I could ask my students, when did I put my hand over the databot? What row, right? What row did that occur? And as they scroll down, they can begin to see it. They can begin to see that we drastically dropped from around 2,800 lumens down to 1,000. So the answer would be row 199, and then it drastically began to drop. And then we can see when I removed my hand again, because look, the data went up again. And then I put my hand back over it. You see that the lumens, the amount of lumens went down. Okay. Now, if we graph this, so let's say I told the students to graph the moment I first put my hand over the databot. Well, they would start about right here, 199, and they would then highlight all the way down to, I would say, row 225. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to graph that, right? So when I graph that, wow, look at that picture. Tells a great story, doesn't it? It sees where the light level dropped, okay, and where it increased. Now, I can do a lot of things with this. I can now go into some serious math. I could do mean, median, and mode, right? What was the maximum value? What was the minimum value? What was the medium value? And so now we're tying all that into student learning, okay? And this is how the databot can be utilized safely within a school district's network, but also bring something like Excel, Microsoft Excel can make it tangible and make it very interactive for students. And hey, when students are reading, whether they're interpreting data through data sets or interpreting data through a chart, they are reading. And when reading skills go up, math skills go up. This is Jeff Epps. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.